Paramahamsa Pravarajacharya Asto Tanasabuchi Shimanis Nayagare Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Nindi Ki Jai Shri Gauri Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the devotees who assembled on Sunday. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari. Maybe we can we get one of these. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, yep. So this is Rukmini Devi Dasi. I'm Anuttama Das. I live in Washington, D.C. Last time I was at the Krishna house was like a long time ago. Because I think I kind of remember the floor being wooden, but maybe that's imaginary. And I don't remember all the houses back there. And I had a t-shirt. You know, sometimes you hear about guys have t-shirts. And you guys have like t-shirts, you just like, you keep and keep and keep. You're all too young. But when you get old, you still have some t-shirts that you had when you were young. So I had, I think it was 20th. It might have been a 30th anniversary Krishna lunch t-shirt that I had for a long time. And if I realized I was coming here, I would have kept it. So I could have worn it one more time, but it's been a while, and it's your first time here, right?
Yeah, I've never been here.
Rukmini's first time. So,
do you mind if I introduce you just a tiny bit?
No, I was going to jump in, but I wasn't sure if you're going to.
That's all right. I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
So Anuttama Prabhu is the ISKCON Communications Director and GVC for many areas. And Prabhuji has served for many years at the Potomac Temple in different capacities since the 90s. And you were in Denver before that. If you were fired up brahmachari in Colorado Springs, I remember.
No, well, in Denver.
In Denver itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I was a fired up brahmachari. I was a brahmachari.
That's what I remember you telling me. I was a fired up brahmachari. But
I was trying to twist your arm to do something.
Yeah, probably. But Anuttama Prabhu has been doing so much service for so many years, and he's a very inspiring speaker. And so it's really nice to have him. And of course, there's Mother Rukmini, who is just a saint. And Mother Rukmini also has been serving so many years at the Potomac Temple and in the DC area, and then the Bhakti Center. And are you on the board still, the Bhakti Center? Yeah. And so yeah, they're both great devotees, and I really look up to both of them. And I ask for the blessings. For all.
Any 16-year-olds here? You're all old people. Rukmini became a devotee when she was 16 in 1968. 1968, people did things like that at 16. We've learned since then. But okay. So and thanks for having us here. So Rukmini is actually part of a small group of devotees that have been discussing a topic called radical personalism. So she had like a talk that she prepared about that topic, and we thought it'd be nice to share that with you. Like I helped with a little editing, like I changed 5 or 6 words to fine tune it. So it really is her creation, but I think it's a very important topic to talk about. So what we're going to do is I'll just kind of introduce it, and then she's going to speak about this topic. And then at the end, we'll see, maybe I'll add a few extra thoughts to that, and then we'll open up for some questions.
Some prayers first. Yananjana Salakaya Jaksandalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Nam Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshakamine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangolam Harite Girim Yakti Pastamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatadanam Vanchakapatarubhyas Chakapashinavevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So good to see you. Very well. Thank you for having us. My first time in my whole life. Before you walked in, for me, it's like being at the Hard Rock Cafe, Gainesville, Krishna House.
One thing's interesting too, like when you do class online with all of you and you put the tables out, like from watching on your computer, you think there's this huge room with people. I walked in and was like, where do you have class? It just, it seems different. So just to continue that, so Rukmini had prepared this talk, and it's just a little bit, really want to give her credit because I think you're going to appreciate the concept she brings up on radical personalism. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit, and then she'll speak, and then I may share a few words at the end, and then we'll open it for questions. So here's a definition of radical personalism. Right? A lot of things radical these days: radical this, radical that, radical environmentalism, etc. So radical personalism is the revolutionary idea that all above all else, that asserts above all else, the personhood of all humans, other living beings, and the supreme person of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. So a culture of radical personalism creates a nurturing, loving environment that honors the integrity of every living being and demands its members create a culture of compassion, care, mutual respect, integrity, spiritual understanding, personal growth, and unity and diversity. And remember that Prabhupada's own pranam mantra that he himself composed states that one purpose of his mission, which is mentioned prominently, that he's preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya and delivering the Western countries which are filled with voidism and impersonalism. So this is kind of developing that in terms of understanding how radical personalism is a key element of who we are and the message we want to bring to the world. So
I think of this as kind of an invitation to all of you. It's an idea that's very important, and I'm speaking something similar tomorrow at the Alachua Temple. But I just kind of really want to put it out there for all of you. So this is an invitation. Please join the Radical Personalism Initiative and carry it out to the world. You going to share those stories about Krishna lunch? No. Okay. So I have a question, first of all. Do you sometimes feel like I do that there's some kind of an impersonalism kind of lurking in your own heart? Yeah. And even in your kind of what are meant to be your personal dealings, there's something kind of impersonal lurking. So have you ever felt unseen somewhere at some time? Or have you ever felt unheard when you've been trying to share your thoughts or your feelings? Or did you ever feel that sometimes you've chosen to not see something in yourself as a sort of a blind spot, something others may see in you? Or have you ever chosen to not hear some inner or outer guidance from Krishna within or from others who may be trying to offer you some helpful wisdom or guidance? Yeah, just a thought, a little question for me and for all of us. So I wanted to share a story that that kind of harkens back to that in my mind. So this is a story that I love. Srila Prabhupada, this is in the early days at 26 2nd Avenue. So Satsvarupa, who is now Satsvarupa Das Goswami, was a young devotee, brand new devotee, and they were having the very first initiation. And he was invited to be one of those first initiates. But he was a very humble person and he didn't feel qualified. So he didn't show up for that. But he was doing typing work for Prabhupada every week. And every Friday night, he would come and bring this completed typing work to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada would accept it. So after skipping out of this initiation, he turns up the next day or the next couple of days, whatever, to give his typing work to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada came to the door and accepted the service that he'd done. And then Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he goes, "If you love me, I'll love you." Isn't that so beautiful? So, yeah. So let's unpack this story a little bit, huh? What was going on here? Anybody have a thought about that? What was going on there in that story? If you love me, I'll love you. And yeah.
I'm just thinking that he didn't feel like he said qualified for his initiation, but still he showed his love to the second.
Uh-huh. Right. And what else?
And Prabhupada appreciated the service.
That's right.
So he
That's
said,
nice. And what else?
Prabhupada wanted him to commit, like marriage vows, same type of idea, like initiation.
That's nice. And what else? Anybody else have anything? Yes, at the back.
You know, I think there might have been maybe some fear on some groups around the groups. Yeah, I think there might have been some like initial fear on his part that if he commits to this, if he gives himself to this person, then they might not reciprocate. So Prabhupada's
Very
kind of
nice.
alleviating that, by actually taking the first step himself, I think, by saying.
Very nice. What else? Somebody else has something that right here?
Yeah, I was thinking that perhaps Satsvarupa Maharaj saw initiation as something different from a relationship, or it was like I wasn't ready for that. But Prabhupada was helping him see that this is just, if you love me, I love you. That's what it means.
Nice.
I'm opening up this relationship.
Very nice. Like opening up maybe the next step. Yeah. Well, yeah. Anybody else have anything to share? Yes, right behind you. Maximilian. Is your whole name Maximilian?
It's actually Matthew.
Oh, it's Matthew. Oh, I'm so crushed. Oh, I told him that Sachinandan Swami had a horse named Maximilian. Oh, but we'll forgive you.
I was thinking maybe that love was the qualification.
Beautiful. Yeah. Anything else on that or just that? Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, thank you all for sharing your thoughts. So the young disciple, he wanted to offer his service, right? But he hadn't come to the point yet of being able to offer his heart, right? So Srila Prabhupada was offering an exchange of love. If you love me, I'll love you. And, or just on that topic a little bit, speaking about our own failures to love. How painful is it when someone comes to one of our temples and for the first time, or maybe even after many, many times, and no one speaks to him or no one speaks to her. So then sometimes you hear, oh yeah, I came to the temple 6 years ago, but nobody talked to me, so I never came back. It's like so crushing, right? Or maybe someone makes an assumption about a devotee or a guest based on some kind of bodily discrimination or prejudice. There's one temple where we have a very dear devotee who's serving with great dedication in one of our temples, and she's Black, she's of African descent. And someone from another culture said to her, "What are you doing here? This is not your religion." You know, she was so crushed. So of course, we're all individual persons, and we all see things from different points of view. And as persons aspiring for the spiritual path of bhakti, loving devotional service, how can we learn to honor our differences more fully in moods of unity and diversity? So Srila Prabhupada really emphasized this. He hammered it, actually. He hammered it and hammered it. This primacy of the personhood of Krishna as the supreme person. And although we know Krishna has personal and impersonal energies, and Srila Prabhupada placed equal emphasis on our own identity as eternal, individual jiva souls, eternally persons in relationship to that supreme person. So in studying this topic, I did some research, and the term personalism in the West first appeared in print in 1799. And there are actually many versions, many schools of thought, but you could call it a worldview with kind of schools under that worldview that emphasize the importance of human persons in the sense that, and this is a quote, "the real is the personal." So that's a quote from that kind of worldview. And it was a reaction to the depersonalizing elements in the industrial so-called revolution or industrialization, Darwinism, Aristotle's definition of man as the rational animal. And as a reaction to all of that, it was about the dignity of the person, about consciousness, about free will, about community. Excuse me. And about how persons can exist in relationship and never in isolation, or how we do just always exist in relationship and never in isolation. So this personalist school of thought was inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was a doctoral student at Boston University. And it inspired his work in recognizing and uplifting the dignity of every person, and in seeing the interdependence and developing the idea of the, have you heard this term before, the beloved community? I love that term, the beloved community. Doesn't that just move your heart? I love that term. So in many places in his Bhaktivedanta purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about how an impersonal worldview actually encourages material desires, exploitation, and material entanglement. Think about it, right? If the world is impersonal, if nobody's watching, if nobody really cares what you or I or anyone else does, then who cares, right? We can do any darn thing, and why not? Albert Einstein said that if we think that the universe, was that my phone? That was your phone, okay. Albert Einstein said that if we think that the universe is neither friendly nor unfriendly, and that God is essentially playing dice with the universe, you've probably heard that one before, right? Then he says we're just victims of the random toss of the dice, and our lives have no real purpose or meaning. But he said, if we decide that the universe is a friendly place, then we'll use our technology, our scientific discoveries, and our natural resources to create tools and models for understanding that universe. Why? Because power and safety will come through understanding its workings and its motives. So it seems that he considered the practical importance of seeing the universe as a friendly place, right? He saw some change of consciousness that's possible by understanding the universe as a friendly place. So personally, I think it's an imperative given by Srila Prabhupada to exemplify personalist interactions in our ISKCON society through the 6 loving exchanges that Srila Rupa Goswami speaks of in his Nectar of Instruction. And in his purport to verse number 4 of the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada says that the ISKCON society has been established to facilitate the 6 loving exchanges between devotees. So what are the 6 loving exchanges? Anybody know? Anybody can say 1 or 2? Yes, Matt.
Giving gifts and receiving gifts.
Great, thank you.
Revealing your mind in confidentiality and hearing mind in confidentiality.
Right. In other words, not blabbing it all over the internet. Somebody shares something treasured, intimate with you. Great. What about the last 2? The last 1 or 2?
Giving and taking prasadam.
Krishna Land. There you go. 50-year anniversary, right? Amazing. Now is the time for you to share that story. Okay, he's got some really good Krishna lunch stories that he can share at the end. Maybe. So this is my question. What would it look like to prioritize in more radical ways our first and foremost identity of ourselves as persons in relationship to Krishna, the Supreme Person, and all living beings as his beloved parts and parcels? So I think I need to ask myself, maybe you might want to join me. Can I consciously try to see and hear what others are going through, where they're coming from, or what someone's need is right now in this present moment? Can I try to care more carefully and listen more deeply in my exchanges with family, with other devotees, or with friends or coworkers? And my question is, could this type of awakened consciousness create a sea change in our ISKCON culture, a culture of radical personalism, or the beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. described? So Srila Prabhupada in his purports and his lectures and his personal dealings, he really boldly beat the drum of a radical personalism, inclusive of all living beings. And his vision and the vision of our Vaishnava acharyas goes way beyond the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Why? Because as a radical personalism, it's not only limited to humans, but it's inclusive of all living beings. So as aspiring devotees on the path of bhakti, it's urgent that we walk our talk and live our ideals, not just philosophically dwelling in the head space, but it all needs to sink down into the heart space as well. We heard this morning, this wonderful brahmachari at the Alachua temple was reading CC with a group of devotees last night, and he read something wonderful that Prabhupada said, that chanting the holy name should engage the lips, but it should engage the heart. It should, we should move our lips, but we should also move our heart as well. Isn't that beautiful? I thought that was really profound. Move our lips and our heart as well. So yeah, this knowledge, devotees are philosophers, right? And so much we can stay in that headspace, but real knowledge needs to transform our hearts for our betterment, for the benefit of the world, and for the upliftment of the world, upliftment of everyone. So devotees are philosophers. And have you ever heard the saying, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying? Yeah. So a very new devotee asked Srila Prabhupada a question once. He said, Srila Prabhupada, how can I serve you? And Srila Prabhupada said, you can go where I will not go. And he was really bewildered. This devotee was really bewildered because Prabhupada had just come from Japan, San Francisco, LA, Texas. She's going to Chicago. Now he's at New Vrindavan, then he's going to New York, then he goes to London, Germany. So he was just, but Srila Prabhupada, where is it that you won't go? You go everywhere. And Srila Prabhupada just shot back. He said, to the future. To the future. And I love saying this story here because, wow, you are the people of the future. You know, like we're old, we're people of the past. You are the future, So Prabhupada says, to the future. And by the way you treat the people there, they will know how much Krishna loves them. So if you forget everything else from this class, just remember that and share it. That's radical personalism. If you can just share that, hold it in your heart and share it, pay it forward, because it's so important, right? By the way you treat the people there, they will know how much Krishna loves them. So to me, this is Srila Prabhupada's radical personalist challenge. This is Srila Prabhupada throwing down the gauntlet to us, to his followers. How do we live and how do we treat others we meet, right? Do our actions convince the people of the world that Krishna loves them? Do we live and demonstrate that love ourselves? This is radical personalism, and this should be the hallmark of what it means to be a devotee. And if we can make this consciousness our shared lived reality, a living love, then this radical personalism can set our ISKCON society apart from others who live and think in more polarized and sectarian ways. This kind of vibrant, transformed way of being would be world-changing and would reinvigorate the Krishna consciousness movement, would endear us to Srila Prabhupada, would attract the hearts of the people we meet and bring us closer to each other as sacred persons, beloved to Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Person himself. So this is my big question. Is the radical personalism possible for us to live today? I believe that it has to become an integral and intrinsic part of the values and ethics of our devotional lives, and in three ways. First of all, in our own introspection, and then second of all, in the dealings between ourselves and other devotees, and third, in the way we interact with the world at large. I believe that this consciousness is essential if we want to create the revolution of consciousness that Srila Prabhupada envisioned, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. So thank you all so much. And Anuttama Prabhu has some thoughts to share as well.
I'll just emphasize a few points. I think this is, I think Rukmini's really hit on it. It's a very essential concept, and the other devotees you work with on this. And I think of that, and probably explains one of the things that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to preach was that the world has everything it needs, it just lacks Krishna consciousness. So, in a similar way, I was reflecting from yesterday, speaking with some devotees about how kind of in the early days of our movement in the West, we had a tendency to think everything we were doing was a source of Maya, which it was for most of us. So there was a little bit of a kind of radical renunciation, becoming Krishna conscious means you gave everything up and you moved in the temple and you kind of started from zero with the thought that you'd just be renounced forever. And then the people that couldn't handle that would oftentimes literally leave in the middle of the night. I can remember as a brahmachari, you mentioned in the Denver temple, the men lived upstairs, and then also in the men's quarters, the showers are back here, and there was a big room with a laundry. You put on tilak with mirrors, and then you went out the door. And one day, standing in front of the mirror, putting in my tilak and hearing this noise upstairs, and then down the stairs, and then behind me, and then out the door. And we all kind of went. It must have been a really funny scene. All the brahmacharis in our gumshas, we all went out and looked out the door as this guy took off down the street, never to be seen again, So that was, I think, a product of radical impersonalism. you know. And I remember there was one man that came to the temple. I don't remember how long he came, but long enough that he had a name, you know, Bhakta Fred or whatever it was. And he was a concert pianist. That was his profession. And we were totally bewildered. Because when you come to Krishna consciousness, you wash pots. That's what everybody does, is you wash pots. You know, he's like, this is my lifestyle, you know. And, you know, pots means, you all know better than we do, but, you know, means big things full of hot soapy water that you can't see into, and maybe somebody threw a knife or two in there, and, you know, he can't do that. So we didn't know how he could fit in. I think another form of radical impersonalism. And as we mature now, I often think, you know, for me, it was like, okay, I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that, because there was no purpose to it. Because I knew doctors and lawyers and they were all miserable. They were all very unhappy people. I remember just before I went to university, I went for a few years, and a very dear friend of mine riding bicycles to school and, you know, kind of talking about life and things like people do when you're 17 years old. And my friend saying, you know, what are you really thinking you want to do? Because she had decided she wanted to be a doctor. And I remember telling her, I only know one thing. I want to be happy. So if you can show me being a doctor is going to make me happy, or being a lawyer is going to make me happy, or being an accountant or a plumber, you know, I'm ready. But I know a lot of unhappy plumbers, a lot of unhappy doctors, and et cetera. So where's that? Where's that missing piece? So, and I think so that led in the earliest years of our movement, a lot of people who kind of gave everything up and then wanted Krishna. But the thing that we oftentimes fail to understand is that, okay, you need to add Krishna, but not give everything else up, because everything else has meaning. You know, Prabhupada would teach us, we've all heard, you may have so many zeros, but you put a one in front, then it is very valuable. So we kind of gave everything up. And then after a few years, realized that most of us still wanted to be married, and still wanted to have kids. And then we realized, well, a lot of us, I can remember, just history lesson for some of you here. I can remember giving what I thought was a radical class in Denver, and I thought I was going to get a lot of pushback. I think I was a temple president there, but I made this radical statement that we need to understand there may be people living across the street, you know, who chant 16 rounds and fall of regular principles, who are more Krishna conscious than those of us that live in the temple. And that was like, whoa. You know, and I was talking about 14, 17, I think, like the apartment building that was a block and a half down the road with like serious devotees. It was like, because we were of this opinion that Krishna consciousness, we were immature in the sense we didn't have a wide experience of Krishna consciousness. So it was a little impersonal. You had to fit in the way we fit in because of our background. We just didn't have that much knowledge. And I remember there was one devotee named Vera Chandra Prabhu, who was a brahmachari, a very wonderful devotee. And he left the temple rather early on, moved out of the community. And then he came back a few weeks later for the Sunday feast. And everybody was like, wow, you're back. How was it out there? It must have been really miserable. And I don't remember how that conversation went, but then it was like Sunday feast was over and they were like, where's your stuff? It's at my apartment. Well, you know, it was like, you know, the computer was overheating, you know, it didn't fit in. And I think over time, you know, devotees starting to understand that actually this is a whole culture. It's not just about 20-year-old brahmacharis or brahmacharinis. And yes, we will get older, and yes, we will have a congregation, and yes, we will have a community. And it was a little bit of a product of impersonalism, thinking that you have to do what I do. Whatever I did is the best. And this radical personalism that Rukmini is speaking about, I think it emphasizes in part a philosophical understanding that we are individuals, that we are people, and the trees are people, and the animals are people, and all those things we learn as Vaishnavas. But also means understanding that as individuals, we're going to have different ways of serving Krishna. And that as the Vaishnava culture grows and expands and hopefully makes a lot of positive contributions in the world, We need like any and every type of activity to be Krishnaized. You know, like Rukmini and Prabhupada Pri were speaking about motherhood for a few minutes before most of you came in, and and parenthood and things like that. And you know, I give this an example, not that we expect you all to be stupid like this, but then in your own lives, how does this apply? I can remember as a young brahmachari kind of thinking, well, it's really too bad these people getting married because it's really taken away from their preaching effort. And now looking back and realizing that those young people, those children that were actually given Krishna consciousness, those are really, as Prabhupada said, that's the fruit of our society. You know, and of course, many people come as I did, as she did, from some other lifestyle. But the people that come who are actually raised in devotee families, that's wonderful. And it's a wonderful contribution to the world, a wonderful contribution as individuals. And that's some people's manifestation of their spiritual life. I heard Prabhupada Pri was saying, yes, I realized that I had my own little Bhakta and Bhaktin program. And for me, in that stage of my impersonalism, I was thinking there's not much value in that. And I was probably thinking the people that only came on Sunday, like Virchanda, wanted to move out. There wasn't much value in that. And of course, this is a very different community, and you're all demonstrating the opposite principle. But the reason I'm emphasizing, kind of go into what she's talking about in a practical application, is this is an essential message that has to be carried. We went way to one side. And part of the reason we did is because I was really fed up with superficial religion. I went to a Christian church camp. I worked there. Well, I was a camp, and then as a member one year. I remember I didn't go to church though. I was like, I never got hired again because I refused to go to church at a Christian church camp. And one day, as I sat outside the services, I remember they came out and everybody was giving people feathers. And I didn't know what they were doing ahead of time, but I was thinking, this is just so ridiculous. There's so much suffering in the world, et cetera. You go to religious service and you come out of there passing out feathers. This is just, you know, there was obviously the sermon was something about showing affection, whatever it might have been. It didn't go very deep. So we rejected that, but we threw out a lot of really good things is a point I want to make. And we need to be very careful. When we see some of this affecting our society at large, there's a lot of, you know, you're smart, educated people here. There's a lot of, a little bit, just like the world is so polarized these days, there's a tendency, you know, they talk about culture wars. There's a little bit of culture war within the larger Krishna community. And it largely comes from people saying, this is the way you have to be Krishna conscious. This is the way we do it here. This is the way we do it there. You can't do that, or she can't do that, or he can't do that. And that's a form of this impersonalism, and that really is counter to the Vaishnava tradition, which is Prabhupada saying, wherever you are, whoever you are, just add Krishna. And this is such an important message because, you know, I saw a photo yesterday. Now the Taliban's back in Afghanistan. We pray for those people and hope things get better. But I saw a picture, maybe many of you don't remember this, but when Taliban was in power previously, one of the things that brought their attention to the world stage was they blew up these huge historical Buddhist statues, like carved in the side of a mountain. They considered one of the world's great cultural treasures, and they exploded them because it was considered, you know, sacrilegious or against Islam, and certainly whatever. Instead of saying, okay, that's your way. You know, there were other people here before us, and this is how they aspired for their spiritual practice. It's not us, but let's respect it, and let's appreciate it, and let's value it. And let's let other people that maybe that's their worldview, then maybe this is where they're going to come and get inspiration from this. That's a good thing. So I think that's a really, really very important message for us to take out in terms of how to practically apply this radical personalism. You know, we hear so much these days about people are so interconnected on social media that you read dozens of things about all the studies they do. The more people are connected on social media, the more they feel alienated and isolated. So even in our, you know, there's this tendency to become separated and polarized, and you're this group and you're that group. And the Vaishnava principle, as she's talking about, is really seeing, no, everybody is connected to Krishna. Everyone's a spiritual being, and let's look for those connected points and appreciate and value the contribution everyone makes. I'll end with this. It seems like every time I turn on a lecture from Prabhupada, he's again saying, as I heard in this one lecture, one variety, he was in Calcutta. It's interesting where he was. And he was saying, I've just come, he said, I went all around the world, all these places. And then one devotee said, and Tehran. I said, oh yes, Tehran. In Calcutta, he said, I was listening to her. He said, yes. And I was telling them they should chant the name of Allah. He was saying, we teach chanting God's names, but we do not say it must be anyone. For God has so many names in there. They chant Allah. So he probably said, I was telling them you should chant the name of Allah. And then he went on to say, as he often would say, that it doesn't matter what religious practice you follow. The question is, are you developing love of God? And sometimes we turn that on the end and we think, yes, and we have the only way you can develop love of God. That's not what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said, are you developing love of God? You measure yourself. Are you developing love of God? And if you are, great. And, you know, we do a little bit of interfaith work, and I've seen a lot of people who do not follow the Vaishnava practice, but I think have a very deep level of love of God. They're deeper than mine, many of them. And they're studying different saints and different scriptures and different traditions, and they have a different sadhana, but they're still very devout people. So if I'm actually a personalist and not an impersonalist, then I have to learn to understand and appreciate them according to who they are and their own gifts that they bring to the world, and the spiritual insights that they have to share with people. So those are just a few reflections on, I think that's important.
It's really nice. Like
Thoughts
if
that you brought
we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts and your takeaways. But I just thought of this one thing. So if my lips are moving, my heart should be moving. That's kind of the point, you know. My lips are moving, Hare Krishna, but not like a parrot. My heart should be moving as well. So yeah, you have.
Yes, thank you.
What's
so
your
much.
name?
My name is Evan.
Evan. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's really inspiring. I was wondering if you could just real quick repeat the definition. that
Oh
you
yeah, the definition. We came up with this in our little cohort. We have a cohort of 5 people. 2 of them are from Alachua. Yeah.
This is part of this North American ISKCON 3.0 effort to look at strategically how to help the movement be more strong and more diverse. So the
Yeah.
group she's in is looking at this concept of personalism.
Radical personalism is the revolutionary idea that asserts, above all else, the personhood of all humans, other living beings, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. A culture of radical personalism creates a nurturing, loving environment that honors the integrity of every living being and demands its members create a culture of compassion, care, mutual respect, integrity, spiritual understanding, personal growth, and unity in diversity. We tried to hone it down, but it got a little long.
She can send that to Shruti. You can share it with everybody if you want.
Yeah. Well, this is being recorded, right? We have the recording. What else? What's a takeaway? What's, yes.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you.
So I have a concern that is related with the topic that you were discussing. And it's actually in relationship with this confusion. Because in less than 20 years, the survival, we are going to be only disciples of the Prophet. And we already have like issues between disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So we have like, we are seeing now separateness inside of this because of different words.
Well, we
So-
see what within this?
Separations.
Separations, because for example, like I'm not a disciple of Guru X and the other is Guru Y. And my Guru X is thinking about something in this way, and Guru Y is thinking about this. So I'm completely against this Guru, and because they are disciples of the Guru, I'm against of this branch.
Right.
And how do you think we can survive?
What is your thought, first of all?
The In the optimist world or in the real one?
Well, let's actually Srila Prabhupada talked about being spiritually optimistic, but materially pessimistic. So I think that's a really interesting insight into optimism and pessimism. We can be spiritually optimistic. Otherwise, why did he get on that boat? If he didn't have some spiritual optimism that all these strangers across the 7 oceans and 7 seas might have some little spark of something in their hearts that would, resonate with his message. Why did he get it? So that's spiritual optimism, right? Okay, so sorry.
So if we are spiritual optimistic, everybody is going to improve their japa so much that everybody is going to be in the same level, and we're going to be transcendental in order to see the progress between each other.
Okay, so who else has a thought? So improve our job is one thought. Do you have a thought? What else can we do to change the culture for the best, to change the future for the best possible future? Yes.
I guess maybe one thing I kind of preface that with is that it's not like saying, oh, ISKCON's in a really bad situation now and it was never like this before, because you look at the history of ISKCON, we've been in arguably worse places and we've moved forward, still in ISKCON. So I think actually what this talk and what kind of your whole group is doing, this whole radical personalism, that is really kind of one of the vehicles of trying to understand, even though Guru X and Guru Y and their followers might even not agree with each other and maybe even kind of agree to disagree on some things, that doesn't stop them from having Gaur Pranim together,
Having Gaur Pranim together.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. What else? What else could they do together? Or Prabhupada Kripa, what is your thought? Prabhupada Priya, sorry.
Well, it's natural for people to have differences of opinion about things and different moods, but rather than focusing on the differences, we can try to focus on the things that we have in common. And we actually have really amazing things in common, like our relationship with our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, like Krishna, the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness. We have the same goal. We do the same practice. We chant the same mantra. It's like all the essential elements of Krishna consciousness and our lives, our identity, our destination, everything. We share all those things in common. We agree fundamentally on all those things very firmly. And then these other things are just details. They're just superficial. It's not something to get worked up about. And if people they have a certain mood or take on how Krishna consciousness should be spread or practiced or whatever, fine, everybody's practicing Krishna consciousness. It's good. It's a good thing because there's all different people in the world, and some people will be attracted to Guru Z's approach and other will be attracted to Guru A's approach. And, that's good. We want to attract everyone. Lord Chaitanya wanted to cast a net that would catch everybody in the world. Confirm.
Please.
Hi, Krishna.
I was just thinking that one of the most blissful ways to experience Krishna consciousness is through Sankirtan, like going out to strangers and sharing this message and the mercy, and it doesn't matter where they come from. As a matter of fact, going to music festivals and crowded bars and stuff like this is some of the most ecstatic ones. People are dancing and chanting and stuff. And so in that same way, we give that mercy out to them. Why wouldn't we extend that same mercy to anybody else who has taken up Krishna consciousness, and also allowing them to be human and knowing that they have a path, and accepting the only thing that we can do is pray that in whatever way they can they do find Krishna, because they are already on that path. So yeah, I think extending that, remembering to extend that mercy and allowing them to be human and figure it out, because in the same way we also are just figuring it out. We have to have mercy regardless.
Nice.
I'd mention a few things. One is, a lot of times I hear younger devotees say, gosh, you were so lucky because you were there in the early days. And I'm thinking, well, okay, if we accept the prophecy that Krishna consciousness is going to spread for 10,000 years, like the first 50 years and the second 50 years, they're all like early history. You know, people hundreds of years from now, so this is the early time. That's one thing. And second of all, maybe one reason I told those stories about the people leaving, sometimes there's this like kind of, we like, you know, sanitize the history. Like everybody got along so well in those early days. It's not true. You know, I mean, there was like, you know, bus parties would drive into town and the temple president would have to get them out of town as quickly as possible because the trouble they would make. Or, you know, there was a lot of, even then, early on, sectarianism and things like that. So those are so some of those problems, they come back every generation is challenging. You know, I study a little bit of American history, and like in Abraham Lincoln's era was like, oh, we missed the excitement. You know, the founding fathers had so many challenges. Like, well, yeah, but the Civil War is coming. So, you know, you guys will have a few things to do too. So, you know, yeah. So in the same way, every generation is going to face its challenges. And at the same time, I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, it might be something nice for all to watch. There's a video of the 50th anniversary academic conference held at Harvard University.
Oh, yeah, you'd really appreciate it.
And, and one of the scholars who speaks who recently passed away.
Where can they find it? ISKCON News
Yeah, online,
website.
just you can.
ISKCON at
yeah,
50
just
is what.
Friday night. And the Joy of Devotion is exciting to get kind of like help you feel.
You
we're
have a
really
movie
making
night here
progress.
at Krishna House? You do?
So
Those
this
are-
Harvard film's only 16 minutes long, and
Which one? Oh, Hopkins.
Thomas Hopkins, one of the early academics who studied ISKCON. And he does this amazing series of points, and I'll repeat them as best I can. But this is what he said. As a historian, when we look at ISKCON and its 50th anniversary, we make comparisons. This is what we historians do. So when we look at Prabhupada's contributions, he said it's very hard to find anyone to compare him to. The only two comparisons that come to my mind as a scholar of the history of religions are Jesus and Muhammad. He said, you got to watch this. I mean, he's not a Hare Krishna, right? He's a scholar. And he says, those are the only two that really can make a comparison. He says, and of course, that's not really, and I don't use the word fair comparison. He says, somewhat, it's not an equal comparison. He said, because we look at Jesus was spreading his own tradition in his own culture with people of his own age in his own place. And he had a lot of people helping him. And he said, Muhammad, in a similar way, was within his own culture. People spoke his own language, and his family was there helping him. He said Prabhupada was in a different country with no friends, no family, nobody even his own age. So in that way, his contribution is much more significant historically. And then he says, and if you look at this on the 50th anniversary, he says, and if you look at Islam after 50 years, or Christianity after 50 years, he says, those people are having a lot of problems. He said, you will see what the future holds, but he said, in many ways, ISKCON is much better placed now at this academic conference, studying ISKCON at this 50-year point, much better place than those two movements were started by Muhammad and Jesus Christ. So again, don't take my word for it, or don't take any other Hare Krishna's word for it, because it doesn't carry much weight. Listen to Tom Hopkins on the video. And it's quite amazing.
I just wanted to say, so when he ended his talk, this is at the end of the,
Another talk.
oh, well, at the end of the conference, he says, so in conclusion, what's my advice? And he goes, just keep doing this bhakti thing. Then he goes, it'll get you there.
He's been studying ISKCON for so many years. And
Actually, when he first walked into the temple at 26 2nd Avenue, there was one of Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatams that he brought with him on the boat. And he asked one of these early devotees, oh, what's this? Because he himself was a scholar. He was studying Srimad Bhagavatam.
And they were very rare. There was like a couple translations. There was one at the University of Chicago. He knew there was one someplace else. And he walks in and here's the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto.
And so he asked this brand new devotee who's there, sitting around, and he asked this devotee, what's this? And the devotee goes, I think it's something like Bhagavad Gita, but I'm not really sure. Something like that. Sorry, Shruti Sagar.
Thinking about the point Prabhupada Priya made, yes, Sureshwar Prabhu, when he talks about the founder Acharya series, and he makes that point about the Madhva line, and or maybe the Ramanuja line, where they're still after 1,000 years, they're still so connected with their founder Acharya, with whoever is Madhvacharya or Ramanujacharya. And so for us as well, like I feel connected with a lot of devotees who might not be at the same age or culture, if they are connected with Prabhupada, if they're actually reading the books, and if they're not, then I don't feel as connected. Because
That's a very beautiful
and
answer to your question, that we have to, remain connected to
yeah,
Srila Prabhupada as a primary Siksha Guru and a founder Acharya.
yeah, and as long as we do that, there'll be a lot, as Prabhupada was saying, yeah, there will be a lot in common, because you'll actually read the philosophy, you'll actually try to apply that, you actually try to live the life of bhakti, and there's so much in Prabhupada's books, as long as those are in the center. And actually that question was asked to Prabhupada. Somebody in India, when Prabhupada was towards leaving his body, somebody asked, who's going to inherit your movement? And he said, my sincere followers. I didn't say this, but yeah, he said followers, like who is following his, his books, his teachings, and as much as we can absorb Prabhupada's mood and his life and mission, the more we do that, I've noticed, like in practically speaking, like if we do that, then we are just on the same page. It's like this unspoken, connection. Yeah,
that's
it's
so
just
beautiful,
there.
like a brotherhood or sisterhood.
Yeah.
So when you meet someone, sorry, do you want to go ahead? So when you meet someone who just wants to fight about sectarian, I think this and you think this, and it's a good thing to bring up. Well, what is it that inspires you about Srila Prabhupada's mission? And try to find try to pull some essential truth out of that person's heart, because that's where that's where we'll all find the common ground. Someone wants to just fight and battle about sectarian things. What is it that you love about Srila Prabhupada's mission? What inspires you about Srila Prabhupada's mission? And then someone will say, well, it's really the holy name, or it's the prasadam, or it's, and then you can go, yeah, I feel the same way. And then create common ground. And it's interesting because Kalakanta Prabhu is sitting right here, and I'm on a group called the Sabha with Kalakanta Prabhu. And I've heard him do this many times in a very respectful way. I have to really, I don't want to embarrass you, Prabhu, but sometimes there are some people who are members of that Sabha, or sometimes maybe we have a guest. And I've heard Kalakanta do this, Prabhu do this a number of times, that he'll be very respectful in honoring the person who just completely disagrees with him on so many points. But just, let's try to find the common ground here. Where can we find a common ground? Where can we find some common thread to honor each other and to really hear each other? I think that's part of it. We don't hear each other. What is our process? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. It doesn't start with Kirtanam. It starts with Shravanam. So even if you're out on book distribution, you got to find out where the person is at, right? Yeah. What does this person like to do? You can't just start blasting from your point of view. What's going to move this person's heart? Where are we going to find a common thread? So first, it's about hearing the person, finding a common thread.
Couple of quick stories. When we first moved to Washington, D.C., I remember going to the National Cathedral, which is Catholic, and I was meeting some priests there. No, National Basilica.
Basilica.
Yeah. And so I had to use the restroom. So I went into the restroom. I came out, and the priest wasn't there. There was this old Catholic lady, and she came up to me and started telling me about Jesus in the National Basilica, like I needed to be saved. And this priest walked out of the bathroom and saw that this woman had grabbed hold of me, and he was
wearing your
I was wearing my devotional clothes, and he was like unbelievably embarrassed and apologized. I am so sorry. And I was like, no, it's fine. We got people like that too. I was like so relieved. It's like, wow, they're not all Hare Krishnas, and he was like a Catholic priest. I mean, she worked in the store or something. It was like, okay, great. So, we all, I think it's part of frankly, it's part of the initial experience of spiritual life, which is like, I mean, I met this one Christian guy in Baltimore one time at Rath Yatra, and he had like a Jesus Saves shirt on, and I was the GBC, had nothing to do because everybody else was doing all the work. So I just started talking to this nice Christian man all about Jesus and his experience and how his life was in the gutter, and he was drinking and he almost lost his wife, and then he got Jesus, and it was like really inspiring. I was like soaking it up. And he's so gutsy. He's in the middle of a Hare Krishna festival telling people about Jesus. So I want to know about him and how it affected his life. And then, I asked him if he'd pray for me, which he did. And that was like really wonderful. And like, we can be inspired by those people, but when we're threatened is when it's like, well, my way is here. And if your way is there, one of us must be wrong. So let's fight it out. And that's the nature of immaturity. So this other story I just want to share. Garuda Prabhu, I've heard him say that a bunch of times, Smithsonian Institute and all that. And he talks about this context of meeting people of a different religion. I think we can do the same thing with our community. And he would say, let me give this example. If I was to tell you about my mother, and I say, my mother is the most wonderful woman. She was such a great mother, and she did this for me, and she did that for me, and she took care of me and nurtured me and helped me out when I had difficulties. She was such a wonderful mom. And everybody goes, wow, that's really great. How wonderful, you had a nice mom. He said, but if I stand up and say, my mom was so wonderful, your mother was nothing compared to my mother. She wasn't there for you. She didn't help you the way that my mother did. My mother is up here. Your mother is down there. That's all. Like, you're all offended, isn't it? So in a similar way, my spiritual practice, my sadhana, my faith, my religion is wonderful because here's what it does for me. And here's how it's changed my life and made my life better. And, it's like, I feel as Vaishnavas, we're meant to be, Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada taught me, so broad-minded. It's like, wow, just see how Krishna's manifest in your life. So if we meet a Christian or somebody who's a follower of another guru, and they're like, my guru is just like, yeah, I got it. It's really, I'm really inspired that you're inspired, And I hope one of these days, maybe I'll try to say something and see if it works. If you can open up your mind to realize that there's other people who have been similarly inspired, who aren't exactly as you are, because we're personalists. That's what it all boils down to. It's like, okay, mine is the thing. And, we don't believe in Buddha, so we're going to blow up all the Buddhist statues. Whoa, that's a little heavy. That's not what our tradition is about. So we have to be deep in our connection with Prabhupada. We have to deepen our philosophy. And we have to deepen in our own broad-mindedness and strong enough in our own faith that we can meet a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or this or that or Hindu from another tradition. And they can be totally ecstatic and enthusiastic or even a little obnoxious in their faith. And we're not shaken by that because we just see Christians working, like this Christian man in Mel. There was no doubt in my mind, God, Jesus, was helping him to turn his life around. And if I start thinking, well, he didn't come through the path of Krishna, so he must be making it up, or it's wrong, or gosh, Jesus never got me off of that, but we're going to not get anywhere. So I think this is when we talk about leadership. I think Vaishnavas are meant to offer leadership to the world by this mature vision of spirituality and acceptance of others. And if we have that, then these little differences won't come up in our movement. And when we do, frankly, over time, those people will be isolated. It may not happen immediately. There was one guru a few years ago who was telling his people, I think he was a guru. He thought he was a guru. He brought a bunch of people to Mayapur and he said, don't go to the class, come and hear me. You don't want to hear all those other people. Come and hear me. It's like, okay, so frankly, he attracted a small number of people, and that's what they want. They want that kind of narrow-mindedness. For my opinion, it's narrow-mindedness. Maybe I'm being narrow-minded by calling them narrow-minded. Those are the people he attracted. That's what they want. They want our way is the only way. So, the old joke about you can fill in the group, but it's the man who died and went to heaven, and they said you can go anywhere you want to enjoy yourself, and he walked around and he thought there was a big wall. That story? There was a big wall. He could hear there's other people on the other side of the wall. It's like, well, then he went back to the gatekeeper or St. Paul, whoever's there, St. Peter, and said, you told me I could go everywhere, but I went to this one place, there's this big wall, and I couldn't get through there. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. That's the fill in whatever group you want, according to the joke. That's the such and such religion. They think they're the only ones up here. So they got a big wall built around themselves, right? So that's not Krishna consciousness.
But it's interesting. I think it's really kind of a definition of neophyte religion, and we see it everywhere. We see it in ISKCON, and we see it in other sometimes, and we see it in other religions too. When when there's that judgmentalism, tendency to criticize, and the miracle of faith, the mystery of faith, works in miraculous ways. People are brought to the next step in many miraculous ways. Someone. Some of my closest friends in the ISKCON society were initiated by gurus who left. And they're just, they had going on and had many realizations and feel like maybe I was also some part of that. But so faith works in mysterious ways. And I think it would behoove each of us to not be judgmental, critical, sectarian, and leave room for that miracle of faith to act. That, maybe someone has faith in a guru that, maybe I don't get it. How is this person inspired by such and such guru? But Haribo, may you be brought to the next step.
People say that to her all the time. How can you be married to that guy?
May you be brought to the next step toward prema bhakti, right? By increasing of faith.
Now, last thing to keep in mind, it's not like you walk in the door of the Krishna house and Paramatma magically manifests in your heart, right? Or he's there with everybody all along. He's guiding everybody, perhaps millions of lives or millions of births even. So everybody already has their relationship with Krishna. We as Siksha gurus or Diksha gurus or servants, we're helping people reawaken their relationship with Krishna that's already there. Good time for it.
Thank you
We
for
already made you get up early. We're keeping you from breakfast. We don't really want to ruin our reputation. Is it okay?
They want to invite us back.
Thank you. So I was thinking, like, when we chant Hare Krishna, we are asking to be engaged in service. We want more service. And so when we get service, we're engaged in service. But I was thinking, because we live in a community, we have so many devotees, it's obviously we'll have interactions with them. So how do we take having good interactions with other devotees as a part of our service and not as they're stopping me from, they are a hindrance to my service. I could be doing something better instead of having to talk with this person. How could we take that as an essential, how can we assign importance to that?
Honor the present moment, because everything before this moment is a memory or a dream. Everything that's going to happen an hour from now or tomorrow or in 5 years is a question mark, right? But right now, honor this moment as the most sacred moment that's given to me, and the person in front of me as that most sacred person. Because, honor Krishna, who's somehow that person was inspired by Paramatma to come and speak to me right now. And what am I supposed to learn in this moment? What am I supposed to hear in this moment? What am I supposed to receive in this moment? And maybe I had my agenda, but what am I supposed to learn? Because that could be change the whole trajectory of my day or even my life. The fill in the blank that I hear from this person in this very moment, So that's deep hearing, deep listening. I think we need more of it. I think anyone who's a preacher, we love to preach, right? But we need to, what is it? 2 ears, 1 mouth. I read somewhere that if you put that, let's see, there's 2 ears, ear on either side of the head, and you put them together, it makes a heart, right? So, try to open the heart to deeply hear, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, try to deeply hear and open the heart. How can I serve you? How can I serve you in this very moment? Because I recognize divinity in your heart. Whatever you are, even if you're a homeless guy on the street, there's divinity there, and maybe you have a message for me right now. Hope that's helpful. Haribo. Such an honor to be here at the famous Krishna house. Haribo. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for dragging you out on Sunday morning. Oh, sorry. You have a...
We have some, we have time. We drove about 12 hours to get here, so.
But you
Yeah,
have, you have, okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you guys so much for this. It was really nice. You mentioned one thing in passing of personalism in the 3 different areas.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on personalism and introspection, what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
well,
was the first stage that she mentioned, with your own reflection and then with others and then outside.
because I feel like, what was that you were saying to me in the car about something from Garuda saying that you know, our chanting is our callback to Krishna. That's
Oh,
very
yeah,
nice.
again, quoting our friend Graham Swag, Professor Graham Swag. He really emphasizes in his translation of Gita and his teaching about how Krishna is explaining that you are all dear to me. You know, Krishna, God loves everybody. I think that Christians got the best slogan, and we should figure out a better one. You know, it's because when they say Jesus loves you, it's like, wow, that's our thing, right? You know, Krishna loves you. So he was explaining. Just talked to him on the phone the other day, and he was saying that Krishna's already calling to us. You know, sometimes you feel like you're chanting, right? You're asking Krishna, you know, please engage in your service. But like, what is my call and why is he going to hear me? And it's so weak and problematic. But he was saying, no, actually, Krishna's already calling out to us. The Gita as an example, he's calling to us. Our chanting is our responding to his call that's already there.
So I think that, you know, that's a really important, to be conscious in what we're doing, to do what we're doing with consciousness. There's Krishna consciousness, and then can be Krishna unconsciousness, right? It's all automatic, you know, but which has benefit also. But if we do it consciously and beg Krishna, show me the next step. You know, maybe other people see what I'm doing wrong, but maybe I don't see. Please show me the next step. Show me what I'm doing wrong. I want to know you. I want, you know, George Harrison, it's really hard, but I want to see you, Lord. I want to hear you, Lord, you know. So, you know, show me what I need to know. And, you know, you can ask devotees who you love also. If you have an intimate friendship with someone here at Krishna House or someone somewhere else, you know, say, please, you know, you're someone that I know really cares about me. Tell me, what can I do? You know, ask Krishna, ask others, ask, you know, Krishna in your heart, ask the holy name. I need to know the next step. And that's doing it consciously. There's, you know, we'll get so much more benefit, and we can benefit others so much more if we do what we do consciously. You know, like rituals. Can I say one more? Rituals are nice. Like we hear a lot of people, you know, our American culture is very robbed of rituals, right? But, you know, sometimes people who come from the East, they say, oh, yeah, it's a bunch of empty rituals, you know, just going through the motions. But rituals can be very good and can have a lot of power, but so much more so when there's intention there. Like if you think of like you having a birthday, right? And somebody gives you a present. Wow, thank you so much. For me, no, you know, and you get the box, right? And the box has ribbons and the box has paper, you know, and you open it up. Thank you so much. You open it up, and then there's nothing inside. You just feel like, what? Yeah, I mean, the ribbon was nice, the paper was nice, everything was nice, but what?
Although we did see a cartoon one time with the Dalai Lama's birthday party. And there was a box completely open with the ribbon and the wrapping. And he was looking at the box. He said, wow, just what I've always wanted. Nothing.
But so the point is, you know, ritual has power. Like you might be doing an arti, you know, so that's powerful also. But if you have an intention, you know, please bless this community, you know, you're offering the incense. Like the Catholics say that the incense smoke goes up and it carries our prayers up to the heart of God, you know. Wow. So give us the fragrance of the spiritual world, you know, put some intention in it, and then it has more potency. It's up to us because it's free. I like to tell the story of one of my friends in Washington. He's a brilliant young Indian guy. His father's an ISKCON Life member, but he's not an ISKCON member. And he works for some big fancy NGO. We heard him speak at the White House, and he's brilliant. And he said to me once, you know what my favorite verse of Bhagavad Gita is? I said, no, what? And he said, the one where Krishna says, now just do whatever you want. I said, really? So, that's love, right? Love means free will. You can take it or you can leave it, or you can take as much as you want. But you can pray to be able to receive more. And then Krishna will give us if we really want to know, he'll give us intelligence. Well, you could do this.
I just want to add to this question, and because I think it's important too, that the personalism on the inflection or within ourselves also means that giving ourselves some space and being willing being able to forgive ourselves. Because, our philosophy, like another thing, the Christians have this idea that we're broken and God heals us. So also we know that we have so many shortcomings, so many issues, mental issues, physical issues, social issues, financial issues, parental issues, go on and on and on and on. So just being able to go, yeah, that's part of life, and that's okay. Because, like Ravinda Suprabhu's done a lot of studies on this, one scholar, Anton Boysen, who looked into like high demand religions, which we are technically a high demand religion, in terms of expectations, and how if we don't handle those in a healthy way, those expectations and our inability to always maintain the ideal can break us. And I think that was my pitter patter story, the guy down the stairs. It's like he just realizes I can't do this, I got to leave, as opposed to like, hey, I'm at this level, I got to take the next step. And I like, there's a little quote from one of those 1 minute manager builds, whatever, highly effective teams or something, where the author says that the two worst words in the English languages are what if, which for us probably talks about lamentation. What if I'd done that? What if I'd said this? What if I'd gone to that university instead of this university? What if I got that major and taken this job instead of that job? Or, marry this person instead of that person? Whatever on it, the mind's just like beating us up. You fool, you idiot, you blew it. I mean, that's the two worst words. And the two best words in the English language, anybody guess?
What now?
Yeah, that's close. Who said what now? That's close. Yeah. Next time. Very similar. Next time. Next time this situation comes up, I'm going to learn, I'm going to do better. So, and I think that's a core part of our philosophy with others, but then your point also with ourselves. So what's the next time? This opportunity, okay, I did it wrong, or I didn't get the effect I wanted to, or I could have done better. Okay, that's what it was. As you said earlier, I learned from that. So next time, how am I going to try to do better? And just one lecture that I heard a tape Prabhupada years ago, Prabhupada was making the point, I think very much in line with this. Prabhupada was saying, if you just chant Hare Krishna, everything will come. I think he said, if you just chant Hare Krishna sincerely, everything will come. And then he paused, like he could tell everyone's feeling in the room. And he said, what sincerely? If you just chant Hare Krishna, sincerity will come. Which for me was like, oh, thank you, Prabhupada. Because just chant sincerely. Who's sincere? I'm not sincere. I'm totally insincere. I mean, my mind's going here and there and there. But, having faith in the process. And that's where also, this worldview, you see the person who's got a little bit of whatever, a little bit of piety, and you see they're making the right step. How can I help them make the next step? Or they're inspired. Like Prabhupada would say, don't tell, Christians or whatever, stop following your religion, follow ours. He would say, can you go deeper? Go deeper in your own tradition. So I think that's
Prabhupada used to say, failure is the pillar of success for someone who is trying. Isn't that nice? Failure is the pillar of success for someone who's trying.
So to keep that in mind, we have high standards. We're pushing ourselves to do better, but not to beat up on ourselves, but say, okay, I'm doing okay. Not that I'm doing okay, be lazy, but that, let me do the best I can to be proactive. That whole thing, right? Comfort zone,
Stretch
panic zone, and stretch zone. We need to be in the stretching ourselves.
He had a
that's part of this
question.
introspective.
You had a question?
Please.
Maybe this can be the next.
Yeah, this is regarding the differences we were talking about earlier, that how do we come together. So I happen to be an engineer, and a common day of my life is actually coming up with designs with other people to take the mission forward or take the project forward. So it really aligned with the thing we were talking about. All of us in the team, we are Asians, someone's American, someone's Japanese, completely different culture. And also, most of them are also lateral hires, which means that they've come from other companies with different cultures. So I'm talking about very different people here. And every day we have discussions around how to complete the mission or how. So there's so much difference in our thoughts, in our design or what we do, but we're all connected with that higher purpose of taking the project forward and taking the mission forward. So this was one thought, that we might have very, cultural, even in thoughts, even in designs. I literally have people who were, opposing my design, or but somehow or the other, we have like a higher purpose, or which is taking the movement forward or taking the project forward. So
Beautiful.
this is what
So
I
how
learned.
can we cooperate to re-engineer this world toward a culture of radical personalism and the beloved community? How can we value engineer the culture to redesign it to a higher purpose? Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here on a Sunday morning and tolerating.